Thanks very much to the organisers. Thanks very much for you guys to hanging on in here. We're really excited about we're creating the first independent, sustainable rare earth supply chain based in the UK. The background to it is that we all know about electric vehicles and offshore wind. What makes them work is rare earth magnets, permanent magnets, not lithium-ion batteries. And there's a huge demand, massive growth rate for this stuff. But we've got a problem is that China dominates, as in many of the metals. China's spending $11 trillion on its own electric vehicle and offshore wind, and it's basically making it clear it's probably not going to have any for the rest of the world. Currently outside China, there's only 3 major players. That's Lynas, the incumbent. They've been in production for quite a few years now. There's NdPr Materials that's redeveloping the old Mountain Pass mine in California, and ourselves building the Saltend plant in the UK. Just a sort of comparison, Lynas have got a market cap of 6 billion. They did 5,500 tons of NdPr last year, and they spent $1.5 billion developing their project. NdPr, 7 billion. They're doing 6,500 tons in 2024, costing them over 2 billion. And we're looking at doing 4,500 tons in 2024, and we're less than $500 million. 2 reasons why we're significantly lower capital cost than those 2 is we're building our separation circuit in an existing chemicals park. So Saltend is the old BP chemicals park, and it's sort of like a we work for chemicals plants without the charismatic CEO and the free beer. And we're hoping to be on the ground there in a few weeks' time with a groundbreaking ceremony to start construction. When we went to Saltend, we teamed up with Associated British Ports and we led the charge for the Humber Freeport. We're very pleased to say that Humber was the top of the list of the first 8 free ports in the UK. That gives us 2 advantages. One, it's a maritime enterprise zone. We get all sorts of business tax relief. And the second benefit is it's a customs zone. That is, we can bring material in, process it, and export it without any import or export duties. And that gives us the opportunity to create the world's first rare earth processing hub. So for those of you who may have rare earth mines or deposits around the world, we believe that Saltend can be an alternative to sending your product to China. We'll be starting off, though, with our Longonjo deposit in Angola, with the main feedstock, but also future feedstock coming from South America and some coming from Northern Europe. And then our customers initially will be, we signed a 50% marketing agreement with groups in Southeast Asia. Now we're getting quite strong demand from Europe and North America. The really exciting bit for us is those of you who live in the UK and following the offshore wind story, the most prominent of which is this offshore wind farm called Dogger Bank. It's a 2.5 gigawatt wind farm, and Hitachi are laying a high voltage DC cable from that wind farm right to Saltend. So Saltend will have a 200 megawatt battery linked to wind farm so that we can connect by direct wire, private wire to that battery. And that enables Tim, our CEO here, to be able to use that zero carbon, very cheap electricity to convert our oxides, our NdPr oxides, into metal. In other words, we're looking to go all the way to metal in the UK. For the future, but there's a lot of noise about it now. You'll have heard lots of noise about hydrogen. Hydrogen, the fuel, is problematic, as most people in this room know, but the area where it's really, really exceptional is actually breaking down metals. So these offshore wind turbines have 7 tons of permanent magnets. So Equinor, who are looking to produce blue hydrogen at Saltend, are working with us to bring their end-of-life turbines. They'll deconstruct them, demagnetize them, and then Tim will use the blue hydrogen to break those magnets down into a metal hydride, or re-put the broken down material into the solvent extraction circuit and produce metal again. In other words, creating the first circular economy for rare earth metals. Where this all originates from is our mine in Angola. The mine's called Longonjo. It's ideally placed right next door to a $2 billion railway line that feeds a $2 billion port, and we have links to hydroelectric power. Tim has just signed a 10-year contract for electricity at 2 cents a kilowatt hour. We just hosted the first ever UK mining trade delegation to Angola, accompanied by a couple of ambassadors and some major corporates. And the train stopped off at Longonjo, and a crowd of people from the local community came out, welcomed the train, welcoming the investment in their community. Just to understand the scale of investment, the port of Lobito has also been upgraded, a $2 billion investment in 2014. And the really exciting bit about for us is that not only will we develop Longonjo, which has a 20-year mine life, we've secured 7,500 square kilometers of ground to the north of Longonjo, which we've just done some initial exploration work on, and we've come up with better results in the exploration than we started off with at Longonjo. So very, very exciting exploration prospects at our Kula project. Just in terms of the thematic, every time we update this slide, the numbers get even bigger. And this is Adamus Intelligence numbers, baseline numbers. It says that by 2035, the deficit will be 15 times Saltend's annual production, and that the rare earth magnet metal price will average over $200,000 a ton for the first decade of our production. And again, just to try to give some color on the demand side, VW's ID3 range of vehicles, that one range of vehicle will consume all of our production for the next decade. Just one area I just want to draw your attention to is, we've heard about, I mentioned Dogger Bank and offshore wind. Dogger Bank is actually offshore wind turbines in a sandbank. The real future, though, is floating offshore wind. You wonder where the scale of the expansion of renewables is going to come from. It's going to be this. It's going to be semi-submersible technology from the North Sea, expanding out to the deeper waters. And the deeper waters have higher levels of wind, so much so that the capacity factors of offshore wind is going to be closer to 50% in these deeper waters. And then the area that everyone forgets is the automation of factories. Every one of those robots is full of permanent magnets. Just in terms of the economics, we've got a $500 million capital spend. We've got an EBITDA of around $615 million and some very, very strong returns at 70% IRR and a very, very fast payback. We've geared the board to aiming to be a premium listing on the London Stock Exchange. So we've got the levels of independence. We haven't quite got the gender balance right yet, but Jeremy Beaton was the guy who built the London Olympics on time and on budget. Baroness Lawthover was ex-Minister of Trade for Africa. She's our ESG champion in the House of Lords. And Steve Sharp's done $8 billion worth of financing in the resources sector. And Tim, our CEO, is with us today. He's one of the few people who's actually done business in Angola before. Summary, we've got a whole bunch of technical advisors, which were very, very high quality. And just one comment. The Fraser Institute came out recently and said that Western Australia is voted the best mining location on the planet. I'm not so sure about that. I'm really not so sure. You know, electricity costs in Western Australia are 10 cents a kilowatt hours. Ours are 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Labour charges in Western Australia, £200,000, 200,000 Australian dollars per head. And just about every project in Western Australia, capital cost overruns and gets delayed. We don't see the case in Angola. In fact, the Mining Journal risk survey came out and put Angola ahead of Western Australia in infrastructure, ahead on fiscal terms, and not far behind on legal jurisdiction. So Angola is right up there against the world-leading mining jurisdictions. And final comment, it's not just us saying that. Anglo, De Beers, Rio, BP, Total, everybody are now moving back into Angola after about 20 or 30 years. So I hope that's helped for you. Thank you very much for your time.